A story we're running in the news at the moment. Amnesty International has just released a report indicating that the number of people killed through death penalty rulings has increased substantially. At least 1,634 executions were recorded around the world last year alone. This global movement says this law breaches two essential human rights: the right to life and the right to live free from torture. Well, joining us now, we've got in our studio from Amnesty International, Muleya Mwananyanda. I hope I've got that right. Mwananyanda.
Mwananyanda.
Thank you very
That's
much
correct.
for joining us here. I know that you are the Deputy Director for Southern Africa of Amnesty International. This figure is high. I mean, it's 50% higher than it has been from the previous year. What do you think is behind the surge?
Yeah, in fact, it's 50% higher than it's been in 25 years.
Wow.
In terms of the executions. The executions have been fueled by activities in Iran, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. So those three countries actually account for about 90% of the executions that happened last year. So last year was a very, very starkly divergent year for us in terms of the trends around the death penalty, with executions increasing up to 50% from the previous year. But at the same time, you had four more countries abolishing the death penalty. That represents the highest number. So the countries that abolished the death penalty were Fiji, Madagascar, Suriname, and the Republic of Congo. Okay. Not the Democratic Republic, the other Congo.
Okay, the other Congo.
Yes. So those countries represent the highest number we've had in more than a decade in terms of countries abolishing. So you see, on one side, you had this other extreme where you had so many executions fueled by three countries. On the other hand, you see light at the end of the tunnel. And what we see is that actually there are more countries now that are abolitionist. So we have 102 countries that have abolished the death penalty. Yeah. And what we're calling for as Amnesty International is that retentionist countries need to abolish the death penalty because they are really now in the minority. And the reason we're calling for this is because we think that the death penalty does violate, as you say, the right to life. It also imposes torture on people. There is no evidence that suggests that the death penalty is a deterrent for crime. There's been no evidence whatsoever
that actually stops.
That it
I mean,
you
get countries that do, not countries. You get people calling for the death penalty. I mean, I've heard that being echoed so many times by South Africans when we see our crime rate getting out of control and we see so many people getting away with horrific crimes and so many citizens saying, bring back the death penalty, bring back the death penalty. But what you're saying is it doesn't actually bring the crimes down. No,
it doesn't. And I can understand people being angry about the rise in crime, but I think that the rise in crime has to be taken in totality, and you have to look at, you know, the totality of the environment. So it can't be placed on one thing that, you know, the high number of crime, there's a causal link between the rate of crime and the abolition of the death penalty, for example, in South Africa. So that has not been established. So it is, you understand when people are upset that people that commit heinous crimes should receive the ultimate sentence, but there has been no causal link that has been established.
How often or how prevalent are mistakes made when the wrong or an innocent person is actually executed? Do we ever get to know that?
Yes, I think there are many mistakes that have happened in most countries. As you know, countries like China, for example, won't tell you how many people they're executing. Because it's still a state secret in China in terms of people that, you know, that get executed. But we know, for example, in the United States that from 1973 right up to December last year, there were 156 exonerations. That is a high number. So it means that those people would have been sentenced to death for crimes they did not commit.
Wow.
So there is a possibility that, you know, there are mistakes within the judicial process that may lead to innocent people being executed.
Yeah, yeah.
So we strongly feel that countries should not retain the death penalty, that this penalty should be abolished.
Let's look at our numbers, because, I mean, of the total that have been recorded, and we're talking 1,634, the majority come from Iran. 977 people being executed. And the majority of them, what I'm having a look here, is mostly for drug-related crimes. Is that what you're finding in Iran?
Yes, and this is really, it's a sad reality, isn't it, that drug-related crimes receive the ultimate penalty. And this is because the death sentence in some countries like Iran is mandatory for crimes such as drug trafficking. Yeah. So we think that it is wrong for Iran to execute people for drug-related crimes, but we do think that it's wrong for any country to execute people for any crime. But it is especially disturbing that mandatory death sentences still continue being carried out. So a mandatory death sentence is a sentence where it's automatic that if you commit a particular crime, then you will get the death sentence
penalty, no matter
without any regard for extenuating circumstances, for example.
And what even disturbs me more, and this really got to me, was that in Iran, you can still be executed under the age of 18.
Yes.
So are they the only country, or the one country where basically child offenders can be executed?
No, there are a number of countries. Those countries are listed in our report. I don't have them offhand, but Iran is one of them. Chad, for example, is another, where you have people who have been executed, including last year, who committed crimes while they were still juveniles and now have been executed. That is just not acceptable, because you can't execute minors for crimes committed when they were minors.
I read there that four under the age of 18 were executed in Iran. The other numbers are also pretty much so high, but that obviously taking the biggest chunk of it. But one thing which you did mention is that China are not obliged to report on what's going on, but there is speculation that thousands are executed in China. I mean, do you have any information on China and what happens there?
Yeah, so China, we do believe that there are thousands that have been executed in China because of the research that we've done previously. However, in China, the people that are executed are not information on people that are executed is not public, because it's still treated as a state secret. So we cannot state the statistics for China. That's the only reason why our report does not contain the number of people in China. But we do believe that there are thousands of people who've been executed in China.
Amazing. I mean, we've run out of time, but I mean, I could talk about this for such a long time, because it's something that, as South Africans, we're very lucky to not have this. But I mean, the types of executions, including beheadings, firing squads, and corpses publicly being displayed on occasions when this does happen in certain countries. It's amazing. Can people read the report? Is it on your website? Amnesty International?
Our report is live on our website today. It's amnesty.org.
All right.
And you can read our death penalty report there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for talking to us about this. Muleya Mwananyanda, who is the Deputy Director for Amnesty International here in South Africa, talking to us about the sharp increase in executions in countries around the world. All right, let's take a break. News after this.